Okay, we'll plough on with part two of breaking down what Martin Brundle said the very next day after Abu Dhabi. Now, if you go through that first part, you look at where Martin was looking, he very much appeared to be reading off the screen and reading a script to validate. Okay, so he might do that a bit now, but actually he answers these questions slightly different, but you'll see. Here we go.
Martin, there was loads of, let's call them new Formula One fans watching yesterday. Can you see the positive that, right, they've had all that drama and we're still talking about it now, so maybe that keeps them interested. But the rules have been so
That's it, all the drama, and that will keep them interested because the kids like the drama.
complicated. A lot of people don't really understand still what actually happened yesterday.
And 2 years on, people still don't understand. And why is that? Because you've fed them a narrative and you've lied to them. For 2 years, you've lied to them. You've kept the narrative for 2 years.
There is talk of court and such like, and those new fans might just think, actually, Formula One is so complicated, I've lost interest already.
Thanks for leading the narrative again. Oh, it's too complicated, it's too complicated. You, the new fan, won't understand. Don't you worry, it's too complicated for you, but tune in for the excitement.
I think we had over 9 million people watching it on TV yesterday, and the audiences are growing. Formula One's had an incredible year. It was a bit complicated, and
it was a bit complicated, but you, the professor, Martin, aren't able to explain it. You'll just, rather than actually make it clear to people what was taking place, what needed to happen, what was wrong, you'll just say, yeah, it was just complicated. Don't you worry your little heads about it. It was just complicated. There. Just keep tuning in. Just keep spending your money. It's okay. It's a bit too complicated for you.
Incredibly controversial. But I don't think it'll put people off watching Formula One. I think it'll engage them more into it, if I'm honest. But we do.
Well, you've done your market research. You know that these deadheads in the comments section, they will still think that they know because they'll believe you. You're the expert. Martin says it's complicated, so they'll say it's complicated. Martin said it should be a red flag, so they'll say it should be a red flag. Martin said that lapped cars didn't have to unlap, so they'll say lapped cars didn't have to unlap. They'll say Martin said that any doesn't necessarily mean all, so they'll say that any doesn't necessarily mean all. This is the bullshit that happens. You cause a conflict, Martin. You're playing your role to throw in all of the bullshit to cause all of the conflict.
We do need some clarity, but it's an incredibly...
Thanks for that, Martin.
Fast-moving, complex, highly technical sport.
So you've added that clarity by telling us it's so complex. Thank you.
And I'm afraid you can write another 100 pages of regulations, but there will still be circumstances.
Nope, not at all. You've got the safety car regulations. When you deploy the safety car, this is what you do. You didn't do that. Quite simple. 48.9, 48.10 tells you what you do. 48.12 tells you what you do if there happens to be lap cars. It's quite simple.
That are just not covered in it, and it's like in any football, cricket, rugby, or whatever. There's
no. Simple. You have a set of rules, but you don't write rules for things that are covered by other rules. So in football, one of the rules is you can't handle the ball. It's called a handball. So you don't write in the rules, a player cannot pick the ball up and pretend they're a basketball player, run down the pitch bouncing the ball and then throw the ball into the goal. That's not one of the rules that you have to write about football, because the rule saying you're not allowed to handle the ball covers that, as do rules in sport. Simple. So you don't need to write these 100 pages to cover the bullshit that is covered by other rules, dickhead.
At some point, there's a judgment call by somebody.
This isn't a judgment call. This is a procedure. There's completely different things. This is not a judgment call. This is a situation where we have had to nullify racing due to a safety incident. Before we resume racing, these are the procedures that have to be carried out. That's not a judgment call. That's not determining whether Who do we judge has caused a crash? Who is in the right here? Who is in the wrong here? How do we go about judging this? It's not that. This is a case of a simple set of procedures which were not carried out, and they were purposely not carried out to manipulate and manufacture a certain ending. Completely different things.
And I think I've said for years, for example, that lap runners should fall back to the pack. And
yes, you have lied about the rules of the sport for years, because the rules changed in 2012, where they reintroduced the notion of lapped cars and lapping. 2012, the start of the 2012 season, and ever since, you've been lying. You've been hyping up every safety car situation with the notion, and will they let the lap runners through? Well, there's nothing in the regulations that says otherwise. Once a safety car is deployed, this is what you do. This is what you have to do before you go racing. Nothing else. It's not optional. There is no race director's discretion as to whether you do that. That's what has to be carried out before you go racing again. But you hype it up. As soon as that safety car is deployed, Brundle, you and Crofty are going, oh, a safety car, safety car. And when are we going to get racing again? And when are we going to get racing again? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? You're always doing it. And yet, what do we see every time? Every time we see the same procedure. We see the safety car come out, them collect the cars up. It takes time. Yes, some cars are going in and out of the pits changing tyres, where you're hyping that shit up as well. But then we collect the cars, we make sure the track is clear, we release the lapped cars, we give them at least one further lap of the safety car. Once we've restored the correct order, once everybody's nose to tail, off we go again. I've proved that. But every time you and Crofty are going, oh, and what is going to happen here? And what is going to happen here? And what is going to happen here? You hype the shit out of it, don't you? These strap-on fans, they love that. Oh, yeah, safety car, what's going to happen? Well, those of us that know the sport know what's going to happen here. Okay, and now you're saying, I've said for years that the lapped cars should drop back. Why should they? Why should they do that, Martin? Like I say, why should Lando Norris have to drop back? Drop back behind Pierre Gasly and now be a lap behind him because he's completed one less lap now. And you can't just say, oh, well, we won't count that lap that he's not completed. We'll just pretend he's on the same lap. Well, now he's got more fuel because he's not had to burn that fuel doing that lap. His tyres have not had to lose that rubber in going round that lap. So potentially, if they're running a fuel load that's kind of on the limit, borderline as to whether they can make it to the end of the Grand Prix or not, he can push harder. He can go on full throttle for longer because he's got more fuel in that car because he's not had to complete one of those laps. Maybe then tyres will be a bit more grippier. You're skewing it. So what you're coming out with is bullshit that is not compliant. The rules are there for a reason. So what you think, Martin, isn't a reflection of the rules, is it, Martin?
not have to go out front and get round again. It slows things down. As it happens, that would have cost.
It's nothing to do with slowing things down. It's just due to making things fair. It's making it fair. We've had to stop racing because of a safety incident. Okay, what happens is, because we've stopped racing, all of the gaps between all of the competitors get reduced to nothing. Now, if some cars are held back behind the safety car because you have to deal with a safety incident, them gaps don't reduce to nothing for them lapped cars. They're left stranded a lap behind. You can't leave them that way, because actually they weren't a lap behind the guy that was just in front of them. Lando Norris was not a lap behind Gasly. You can't now leave him a lap behind Gasly. So that's what you need to consider, but you don't explain this to fans. You lie to them. You make it sound like, oh, you're lapped, you no longer matter. That's not how things are. We've seen on multiple occasions that cars that were at some stage lapped come back and get point scoring positions in races. You've witnessed that. You've commentated on all these races, and yet you're coming out with the bullshit now.
cost Lewis Hamilton dearly back in Imola when he was recovering from an incident, and other drivers in the past. But
So you're trying to make out now that Lewis Hamilton somehow received some sort of advantage had things been, or would have cost him dearly if things would have been different. Well, we're just carrying out the rules of the sport and what happens under the rules of the sport, Martin. So why are you trying to project somehow that Lewis has received some sort of exceptional benefit? It's just what it is.
The lap runners are lap. Let them just fall back through. And
No, I've just explained the implications. Lando Norris was in 8th position. Perez retired, it boosted him to 7th. 7th should be capable of contesting with 6th. Don't deny him that opportunity. This is about sporting fairness. This is what the FIA International Sporting Code is there, that sport is carried out with that regard to every competitor in sport.
put the leaders together like that and go racing.
Who's a leader and who's not a leader? Who's a leader and who's not a leader? Is first a leader and second a leader but not third? Because that's what happened in Abu Dhabi. Carlos Sainz, you don't matter. You don't matter. You can't win this race. Why not? Why can't he? You're not allowed. A Grand Prix is not a duel. It's not a shootout between two competitors. A Grand Prix is a contest contested by all entrants. You can't deny anybody the chance of competing, which is what you did by breaking the rules of the sport.
Again, so I think there are a number of solutions. Michael Massey is relatively new to it, the race director.
So here we go. The ball starts rolling with Michael Massey being the fall guy for this. Michael Massey, we're going to pin this all on you. There's 10 guys in FIA race control, but we're just going to say it's you, Michael. Don't you worry, Michael. What we'll do, we'll pay you off handsomely. We'll make sure we tell everybody that this legal order where you're not allowed to say anything, we'll say legally you can't say anything, and people will believe that. Well, no, in a court of law, you have to tell the fucking truth. Otherwise, we'll just tell you how it is, and if you don't want to open your mouth to say otherwise, that's how it's going to be, Michael Massey. Right? Legally, he doesn't have to say anything. What? Legally, you can be corrupt and not answer questions about corruption. Is that what the mechanism is? Right, so straight away you're projecting about Michael Massey now. This is where that narrative begins. Oh, it was just him. It was just his fault. He's inexperienced. Go easy on him. But that's where the problem lies. No. F1 TV, they are at every race, creating footage at every race. They know the rules of the sport if you do that. You, Sky Sports F1, you're commentating on every race. With all this experience, you know the rules of the sport. You're hyping the shit out of everything, lying about the rules of the sport. This all happened before the human error, where there were 10 people in FIA race control, at least, all there, all that know the rules of the sport. Then you've got 4 stewards that know the rules of the sport. Derek Warwick, Felix Holter, and Gary Connolly. Decades of experience between them. Know the rules of the sport. I've been stewards at events where they've seen Massey and Charlie Whiting carry out those safety car rules. They know exactly what they are. But on that appeal, they let in Red Bull and they sided with Red Bull. Oh, we think that your interpretation, all of a sudden Red Bull, after 199 Grand Prix, we believe your interpretation is the right interpretation. Just for that one event. Because after that event, oh, we're back to the interpretation that was always there before. But the difference is now is that we've replaced the word any with all, and that's made everything so much clearer. That's a bullshit.
Now, Charlie Whiting, who wrote these regulations, knew them inside out and was strong with teams. They feared him in terms of they didn't mess around with Charlie. And anybody who does this job.
I thought it was like a legal document, like this thick. And, you had to read them from page to page, from front to back, cover to cover, upside down. Otherwise, you wouldn't know them. So if you are a official in sport, does the referee that's refereeing the World Cup football final, if he is corrupt, oh yeah, but the rules of football are like this thick. They're like a legal document, and it might be confusing that the referee doesn't know the rules. Is that how you're excusing Michael Massey, the man selected to be the main official in Formula One? And those 10 guys around him that are officials at each of them events, and some of them would have been there over that 10-year period, they don't know the rules of the sport.
Needs to have that kind of control over very, very competitive people on the
Corrupt people is what you're the word you're looking for, Martin.
pit wall. I personally do not like to hear teams working away on the.
So what we're going at now, we're doing the other diversion, aren't we? Oh, it was these people having a go at Michael Massey. It was Mercedes having a go at Michael Massey. We're not too worried about Red Bull. We're not too worried about Jonathan Wheatley going, you don't need to let them go right around the track. And then we've got a motor race on our hands. So what you're actually doing is suggesting that he doesn't need to complete that mandatory lap of the safety car. And Red Bull will say, oh, no, we didn't say that. But what are you implying? What are you implying? And then you've got Christian Horner going, Christian to Michael, why aren't we getting these lapped cars out of the way? Well, that's not the purpose. It's not to get them out of the way, is it? It's to restore sporting fairness. We only need one racing lap. Well, we don't get one racing lap if the conditions do not allow one racing lap. If that safety situation can't be dealt with in time to enact these procedures in time, it's a safety car finish. Unlucky, Christian.
The referee effectively saying, hey, don't put a safety car out now. That is absolutely out of order, and that needs to stop, where you can start putting. So Massey is trying to handle a car in the barrier, a truck on the track clearing the car away, and marshals and people lobbying him as to whether he should or should not let the lapped cars go through.
No, Massey's not having to handle that. What's needed to happen is the clerk of the course is there dealing with that. Okay? Massey has the discretionary use of the safety car, which means I'm seeing an incident on track, I'll deploy the safety car. Okay? That's his authority. I've deployed the safety car. Right, okay. Clerk of the course, sort that shit out. Clerk of the course goes onto the course, sorts that shit out. Once he's sorted it out, he goes, right, I've sorted it out. Back to you, Massey. Now it's Massey to say, right, I must now carry out these procedures before we go racing again. That's how it works.
Or, whether or not he should even throw a safety car, as we had earlier on when Giovinazzi broke down on the side of the track and didn't park particularly close to a certain.
That's it, Martin. You keep everybody guessing with the different options. Keep disorientating. Oh, it could be this, it could be this, he could decide this, he could decide that. It's all pretty straightforward.
Service access. So
get a head start.
There we go. More adverts.
Wholly unacceptable, in my view, that teams from the pit wall can lobby effectively the referee.
And that's an easy solution. You just turn the radio off. You tell them to shut up, or if they don't shut up, you turn the radio off. Carry out your job. Simple as that. And if somebody is corrupt, you deal with them. As a governing body, if you identify that one of your members of staff is corrupt, you deal with it. You sack them, and you actually amend what has gone wrong. Quite simple.
Yeah,
And let's be clear, Massey wasn't the only one that did anything wrong. Like I said, there's 10 people in race control. The 4 stewards, they confirmed that result. The FIA themselves, they confirmed that result.
very fair point. I must say those viewing figures that you just said, Martin, absolutely superb. You and the rest of the Sky Sports F1 team are just brilliant. And one of those people is Anthony Davidson, who we spoke to about an hour ago. And I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked to him, how Lewis Hamilton has come out of all of this as a person, really, because he's acted with class and dignity.
So at no stage through this interview have you identified the crux of the problem. This is the day after the event, right? Identified the crux of the problem, clearly articulated that had the rules of the sport been followed as they needed to be, Lewis Hamilton would be an 8-time world champion, and that therefore Max Verstappen has been crowned world champion incorrectly due to what has been taking place. But you're not going to say it like that because you were part of the fix. You were lying to people to condition them to believe the fix before the fix even took place. But now we go on to it. fantastic viewing figures. And you, Sky Sports S1, you're all fantastic. Yeah, you're all amazing, aren't you? You're all amazing. Let's talk about how amazing Lewis is now.
Since things didn't go well for him, he's not celebrating that 8th world title, but he was so gracious after that, and he could have been completely the opposite, and he wasn't. How good does he look?
Well, it's not just Sunday, is it? I've known Lewis. I first met him when he was 13 years old, and I think he's always acted with class and dignity. And he's a very fair driver on the track, and he's had to get his elbows out a little bit because Max Verstappen has turned up with a more aggressive style than perhaps we've seen.
No, what's happened is you've validated Max Verstappen's dangerous driving all season by communicating to fans that that's acceptable when it absolutely is not. But it's all been part of the agenda
in Formula One of recent years. So Lewis handled it well. His dad was there, and I'm sure, Lewis could have been celebrating 10 world championships on Sunday had he not.
Let's not talk about them because they're irrelevant. Okay? Yeah, he's just been fucked out of this one. But you know what? He could have had a few more as well. So, yeah, it's just one of them things, isn't it? No, this is the biggest sporting fix that we've ever witnessed.
Not have gone into the, a slippery pit lane in China 2007 or an engine.
Okay? So, either his team, or if Lewis himself didn't listen to his team in 2007, whichever it was, denied him of a world championship. Was that the sport itself cheating him out of it? Was that the sport breaking its own rules to cheat a driver out of a championship? No, it wasn't. So therefore, it's not a comparable situation. Irrelevant.
Engine blow up in Malaysia 2016.
Mechanical failure. Was that the sport breaking the rules of the sport to deny him a championship? No, it wasn't.
Or he might have lost in 2008 had it not rained quite so hard in the final laps in
weather conditions. Is that the same as the sport breaking the rules of the sport to manufacture it for another driver and deny Lewis a championship? No, it's not. And we'll get the strap-on boys going, oh, 2008, that's when Massa should have been champ. Well, that's when the governing body should have disqualified the team that cheated at the Singapore Grand Prix. And all that would have done is made Nico Rosberg the winner of that event, and that would have promoted Massa from about 12th or 13th up a place. It'd have still got no points. The outcome of the championship would have still been the same. The only thing that affected that race, all competitors in that race were affected in the same way. They were all subject to this artificial event of a car crashing and a safety car deployed. Okay? There was not a skew. They all then responded. They pitted and they would have got on track. And had Ferrari not have messed up with their refueling rig, there's a good chance that Massa would have been in with a chance of either first or second in that race. He might have beaten Alonso, might have well finished ahead of Hamilton. The only thing that messed it up for Ferrari was the problem with the refueling rig. So they were subject to the same conditions. All you do is you disqualify the cheat.
In Sao Paulo, it's the way it goes, and I can.
It's the way it goes, as though you're comparing those three situations with Abu Dhabi. They're in no way comparable. But again, what do you see in the comments section? The strap-on boys using those as counter-arguments.
Can understand why he would feel aggrieved. He's been so fast in the final stages of this season, unbelievably so. But they both absolutely deserve that title. You can't say
this notion of deserving is bollocks. Okay, you accomplish something if you accomplish the criteria that it takes to win it, and that is the person that accumulates the most points over the course of the season. You could go back to the Premier League season where Liverpool got 100 odd points and lost one game all season, and you could say, oh, Liverpool fully deserved to win the Premier League that season. Well, they didn't. And the reason they didn't is because they didn't accomplish the criteria, and that was accumulating the most points. That's all that matters. Lewis Hamilton would have done that, were it not for the governing body breaking the rules of the sport.
Verstappen didn't deserve the title. I've got to write a column for Sky.
Deserve. Bullshit.
Well, at some point when I can get rid of some jet lag and find a bit.
And you're presenting the notion of deserving to somebody, but dismissing the notion of Lewis Hamilton deserving it, going into that final race level on points, despite the fact that one of those drivers had been gifted the victory of a parade, Lewis Hamilton being on course to win it, and Lewis Hamilton being the one cheated out of it. And yet you're not explaining that he's the one that deserved it. You're coming up with all Max Verstappen statistics to justify the notion of deserving.
Bit of time, but Max led 652 laps this season to Lewis's 300.
Irrelevant, but we see that. The strap-on boys present that in the comment section. Utter bollocks. Irrelevant. For a Grand Prix, here's the irony. You don't even need to lead a lap. One. You can lead one lap. That could be the last lap. That's all it takes to win it, doesn't it? There's the irony. Okay, laps led means fuck all.
3. It was 10 wins to 8, Max's favour. 18.
10 wins to 8. That's a skewed stat. One of them wins was counting Abu Dhabi, which should have been Lewis's. So that makes 9 to Lewis and one less for Max. So that Max down to 9. And the Belgian parade wasn't a Grand Prix. That wasn't a race. Nobody could overtake. So that's another one off Max. It's 9-8 to Lewis, not 10-8 to Max. But that's a statistic that you want to present as being deserving.
17, his favour on the podiums. And he left 15 of the 22 races of the season leading the World Championship.
Wow, that's nice. Let's give him the championship. Let's ignore the criteria and give him the championship.
Including the last 7. So, Verstappen did a great job. Hamilton's comeback with Mercedes-Benz was sensational. And either of them, you kind of want to give them both the world champion.
No, you don't. You want to give the championship to the person that won it. Rightfully won it. The one that wasn't cheated out of it. Systematically by a corrupt sport. Systematically by a corrupt sport. Corruption that you are part of, Martin. Disgusting human being.
We can't. And that's how it played out on Sunday. And I think it's time to move on now. But that's how it played out on Sunday. And I think it's time to move on now. But that's how it played out on Sunday. And I think it's time to move on now. But
the day after the biggest fix in sporting history, Martin thinks it's time for us to move on now. Paid to condition people to accept it. Paid by Liberty Media, by Sky Sports F1 to condition the minds to believe it to all be, oh, it's all okay. It's just a few things here. It's all a bit complicated for you. Don't you worry your little heads about this. Just move on and look forward to next year. It's going to be great. Make sure you buy Formula One for next year. Look at all these fancy brands. It's great. Let's just move on and look forward to the future.
That's how it played out on Sunday. And I think it's time to move on now. But to get back to your point, I don't think I've ever doubted Lewis's class in and out of the car.
They both do deserve the World Championship, and you definitely, Martin, deserve a rest. So enjoy that. Thank you.
Yes, Martin, you definitely do deserve to be arrested. So, yes, you are a fraud. You deserve to be arrested. Fucking criminal. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the content. We need to get this out to a bigger audience so more and more people get exposed to what really happened. Of the global audience of 108 million people that watched that event, which we were told was 108 million people, it could even be more. But of them, there's a tiny proportion that actually know the truth. There is a tiny proportion. It'll be less than 1 million that actually know the actual implications of what really went on and the true extent of how this was fixed. They just don't know. because they believe what they've been told, and what they've been told is by the world's media that have all parroted the same narrative. We need to start waking them up. They need to see what really happened. So please share the content and enable more people to see what truly happened. Thanks for your time.